I know, we've all heard this song a million times, whether we wanted to or not. Every wedding, every karaoke night, somebody's butchering it. But it's still such a good song though, and it has some really cool keyboard parts. So don't stop believing, my friends. And let's see what we can learn from this. Structurally and harmonically, the song only has two different sections. It's not really a verse-chorus kind of structure, so I just call them section A and section B. Probably the most recognizable signature part here is the piano riff that opens the song. Sounds like this. Let's reverse engineer that and see what we can learn from it. We'll start with the chord progression. The key is E major and the chords change every bar. We start on a tonic chord E, then we move to the 5 chord B, followed by 6 minor 7, which is C sharp minor 7, and then 4, which is A in this case. So there's a 4-bar harmonic phrase, and as is so often the case in pop songs, that 4-bar phrase repeats to create an 8-bar section. There's one variation though. In the second half of the A section, the C sharp minor is replaced by G sharp minor, which is the 3 minor chord in the key of E. Okay, next, let's look at how they create the actual piano part from that harmonic framework. The right hand plays consistent eighth notes in a 2 notes, 1 note, 2 notes, 1 note pattern that's super common in pop piano playing. The voicings are interesting in that they use 3-note voicings, but with only 2 discrete notes. So for example, instead of playing a regular E chord with root 3rd and 5th, they play an E power chord, which contains only the root and 5th. And then they double the 5th to get to a 3-note chord. The 3rd tells our ears whether something is major or minor. So leaving out the 3rd creates ambiguity, which can make things more interesting. Now there's often other parts of the arrangement that fill in that missing information. For example, we get a G sharp in the bass line, or the very first note of the vocal melody is G sharp. Still, power chords are a good way to create a bit of mystery. And they're doing it again on the very next chord B. Here they double up on the root instead of the 5th. On the C sharp minor chord, they go in the opposite direction and make the chord more complex instead of less, by adding a 7th and even doubling up on it. Notice that this is the exact same voicing as the one for the E chord, but it sounds much richer because relative to the root C sharp, we now hear flat 3 and flat 7. Check out how simple and open this voicing sounds when I play E in the bass, and how much more complex it sounds when played over the C sharp. The final chord of the 4-bar phrase is A major, which they voice 1, 3, 8. The whole thing repeats, except as I mentioned, the C sharp minor 7 is replaced by G sharp minor, which they voice with flat 3, 5, flat 3. To deepen our understanding of this whole thing, here's another way to look at it. The right hand part contains 2 components. The outer voices, which form an octave, and then the inner voice, which plays this little melody in the first half of the A section, and this variation in the second. You put these 2 components together and you get this beautiful dance between separate layers of music. This kind of deconstruction not only deepens our conceptual understanding of the music, it also levels up our ear's ability to detect hidden structures within the music, which ultimately makes it easier to play. So that was the right hand part. Now let's check out that left hand bass line, which by the way is doubled by the bass guitar almost note for note. On the first 3 chords, we start on the root and then move up to the 3rd via a passing note. And then we land on the root of the next chord on the end of 4. The syncopated rhythm is really important here. Listen to how it would sound without that. 3, 4. Ma. On the A chord, the melody goes 1, 4, 5 instead of 1, 2, 3. And that takes us back to the E. In the last 2 bars of the verse, the bass line gets a little simpler. The G sharp just sits there for a bar. And then the return from the second A chord back to the next 8-bar phrase is not syncopated. So that's the first 8 bars, and they set the tone for the whole song. Or do they? Maybe not. More on that in a minute. But first, we have to talk about what happens after the piano intro. Well, the vocals come in and we get 2 A sections of that. Then we get 1 A section with a strange and awesome guitar thing over it. And then 1 more vocal A section. There's a couple of variations during all of this that are worth mentioning. First, whenever Steve Perry is singing, the bass line is slightly simplified to make room for the vocal melody. Here is a comparison of the bass lines of the first and second 8-bar phrases. There are fewer notes and a little less syncopation in the second one. And secondly, at the end of the 4th A section, the one with the strange and awesome guitar thing in it, there are 2 hits played by the whole band that come out of nowhere. That'll wake you up. So now we're about 1/3 of the way through the song. We've heard the same 8-bar phrase 5 times in a row, but I think it doesn't get boring. The piano riff is awesome, the melody beautiful, Steve Perry singing is off the charts, not to mention there's that strange and awesome guitar thing. But now they do decide that it's time for a change and they finally introduce the B section. So Jonathan Cain, the keyboard player, was like, okay, we're finally playing a new section, and in celebration of that monumental occasion, I'm gonna stop playing piano and switch to a synthesizer. Here's what that new part sounds like. The chord progression here alternates between 2 bars of A and 2 bars of E, and lesser musicians might have done this. That's correct, but it's not hip. What they're doing is hip because it contains a melodic component. Guys, melodies is where it's at. That's the secret sauce. Good instrumental parts usually contain melodic movement. It creates secondary points of interest in addition to the vocal melody. Here we have a top line that sounds like this. Which is then harmonized with a second voice like this. And then he adds an E at the bottom of each chord. He plays that 4-bar phrase 3.5 times, and in the last 2 bars of this 16-bar B section, this happens. So after this B section, the A section returns, and the logical thing would be to go back to the piano and play what he played at the beginning of the song. Instead, he's like, maybe I should just stay right here and finish the song on the synthesizer. And that's what he did, and it works great. It helps turn what started as a power ballad with piano focus into a mid-tempo rock song where the guitars rule and the keyboard plays second banana. Here's what he plays in the remaining A sections. He takes the same idea that he used for the piano part and expresses it in a different way. The voicings are essentially the same, but the rhythm and the way he breaks up the chords is different. Once again, here's the piano part. And here's the synth part expressing the same chord progression with the same voicings. The biggest difference is this little melodic phrase at the end of each 4-bar phrase. There are small variations of this throughout the second half of the song, but that's the gist of it. And that's it for today. I hope you got some value from this video. Like and subscribe if you did, and I'll see you next time. Peace and love.